Yeah, welcome back, guys. Today I want to show you a very interesting feature in our constant endeavor to build a no-code application platform. The next logical step is to allow users to or power users to define application in a more visual manner, without having to worry about it. So the natural first step that we take into this is allow them adapting the layout, for example. In a While the application is running. So in this exercise I would just show you, of course there are a lot of things that we still have to consider, but let me just jump right into it. So to start with, let me just open the application in a normal mode. This is how you would run. I right now have for my tenant demo one only one app deployed, so let me just launch it. So you see the boring simpleton application layout with the filter and then the filter and the set of records visible. So let me start by so we would customize the layout, but I would also want to mention that this is not a just a cosmopolitan change to the layout, but it is more of a functional layout. So to launch the live design mode, all you have to do is just add the prefix design mode, and then you see that the application is launched in a frame of the design mode. So you could probably look at the full screen. You could just toggle the expert mode. Right now I don't want to show you other aspects. Just let me just go the expert view, where people have fine control over what they can do with the layout. So let me first start by putting a nice header to the application. Let's call that as order list. So I currently have two pages in it. I will only focus on the first page. So go to the page 1. In my layout I have 3 facets. The facet order list header is supposed to work on the same entity ID order, but you have say possibility to add content on the header. So right now I don't have a configuration there. Let me just start by adding a configuration object. Right now I'm talking about a string field. So let's say I want to put a title. Let's call that as orders, and then I would like to put a description to the facet, which is then say call that as sales order, right? And let's hit apply. So you see now I have a header coming in. Let's do something interesting to the list, or let's start with the filter first. So we tweak the order header facet. Now let's look at the filter facet. So in the filter facet I want to hide the technical fields. For example, I want to just have ID I have order number and status there, and everything else should be just not there, right? So let me start by changing to object mode, similar to what we did last time. Let's append, and since we are talking about only the fields customizing, I would say okay, just the fields, and this is then an object. And let me also append first field that we are putting is ID, and we want to hide the ID, right? We can do more, right? We could just say change the label and so on, but right now I just want to hide the field, so I will say enabled as false, right? And let's hit apply. So we got rid of ID, and I want to do the same treatment to say customer ID. So I do customer ID, and I want to do the same treatment to say due by, right? And I want to do the same treatment to then quantity fields, quantity, and similar thing I want to do for say delivered quantity, right? Delivered quantity, and let's hit apply. Voila. So we have only order number, customer name, and the status as the set of fields available. Let's switch over to the list side here. It's looking too much cluttered. Let's do the same stuff as we have here and apply it to say facet number 2, which is the list screen, right? So let's say this was let's start by naming it as an object. Yep. And let's move the same configuration that we did with the fields, and we'll take it over to the config part, right? And let's name it as fields, and you say we just have order number, customer name, status as 3 fields on the list. Maybe it's not so interesting. Let me just also have say due by field, right? And so what I do is I then remove the due by enablement from here and hit apply. I have due by as a status. Let's look at let's rename the fields a little bit. So we okay, let's do that later, right? In the configuration I also want to have the title coming up here. So let me add string field, and okay, I moved it to the wrong place. I should have put it here and call that as title and say list, right? Okay, not so nice. Let's put it as order. So I have now the orders list. So far it was more or less cosmetics. Let me add something interesting here. We want to put a detail screen. Let's look at putting a detail screen below, right? So then let me just duplicate the order list facet itself, because we are talking about the same data type, both the header, and let's say this is called form, and my facet type should be form, and let's take over the same field structure, and let me call this as order header or order details, and I want to have this linked with not the order filter this time, linked with the order list, right? And the data source must be okay. This is little technical, so I don't just say, because we are talking about 101, we call it as retrieve data source, and hit apply. Okay, nothing came up here because we have added a facet, but we have not put that in a layout as in how it would appear, right? Let's say we want to put that in the right side. Yeah, interesting, right? Let's say here is the filter, select the order head list, and then it appears on the right hand side, or I could put that just below the order list itself. So let's say I want to put it below the order list, and right now I have only one facet coming in here, and let me just say I want to add another facet, which is this was order list. I want to have it as order form, and hit apply, and you shall see the order form, right? The form is basically showing the detail of the selected record. Let's select this one. So you see we added in the layout another functional screen, and this one was then active on the details selection of the record. So you see this one. Let's add one more facet, which is then probably partitioning my order details into 2 parts. One as the delivery, say order header details, and then the delivery information, right? So let's do that by going back to the facet view, and I want to add say one more facet. This time it is not just the order, it's the order form. Let's call that as order, let's duplicate it first, and let's call it as order delivery form, right, which is talking about delivery details of the form. And in here I want to show, of course I don't want to show ID, I don't want to show customer ID, we don't want to show, but we want to show quantity and delivered quantity, right? And we don't want to show the other information, as in the customer name, stage, customer name, and the maybe status, and the yeah, let's keep the status here. Let's not have due by date there. So let's duplicate one of the fields, and let's say we will, in that form we will not have due by, we will have the quantity. So I will say enable we will also have delivered quantity. I will mark that also as enabled. So quantity, delivered quantity, due by will not be there. Customer ID will not be there. Let's say customer name and status should also not be there. So let me say, okay, duplicate this, and I say instead of customer ID, say name should also not be there, and the status should also not be there. So let's say status is also not there. Okay, we have only customized the form. Let's look at adding that in the facet. But interestingly, I could just simply duplicate this one and say instead of form, this is called order delivery form now. Order delivery form. And let's hit apply. Let's see what happens. I'd say apply. So now we have two forms, order details and order details. Of course, we should rename this one. Let's name it as order. Let's call it as delivery details. Yeah, delivery details. And in my delivery details, I would only have say 789 order number should not be there. Let's also remove that one from the list here and call that as order number, and this should also not be there. So we have only quantity, delivered quantity, and let's say due by date we want to have, enable it and apply. So you have due by date, quantity, delivered quantity, and we in the upper one, right, we do not want to have what we don't want to have, say customer name and due by date. We don't want to have them there. So let's go to the upper facet of the form, and we don't want to have along with this one, let's duplicate, and we don't want to have say due by date, right? So now I have two forms. Let's look at the full screen mode. So I have a form 1 okay, I should have named it delivery details, but that's okay. Let's call it as delivery details, right? So we got the functional layout done, but I still don't like it because I see them one below another one. I want to rather see them next to each other as two parts, right? So what do? So I go back to the layout, and instead, so facets stay the same, we don't want to change that, but instead of layout I want to probably also have not a facet here, but rather have let's copy this over, right? So let's add them as and a new let's duplicate this one. So duplicate, and this one under the order list, it would not be a facet, but it will be a item type will be let's say container, right? And this would be then under the container I will have, of course, not the facet ID, so I remove this part. I will under the item type I will have say insert below, let's say, okay, let's append, call that as append an array, call that as items, right? And these two items would then, okay, of course we need to have also container type. So let me add also, let's add along with the items, I want to also add along with this one, I want to also have what is the type of the container, right? So this one was not a call, this should not be a column, but instead row, because we want to have one next to each other. So now I have a container which is of type row, and this one is right, and it should have two items, and these items where will we get them from? Let's put the order form and both of these in the items. One, super, and let's add this one also as the items. Okay, sorry, it went in the wrong place, let me undo it. So one item did we add that here, and we want to add that also there. Okay, let's add row, no problem. And I will move this one above. So I have now